Alright, so it's 6:02.
Yeah.
May. Are we in May? April 4th, April 12th. 2023. This is going to be planning and zoning meeting. Members present are Sean Hammett, Bronwyn Gooch, Wyatt Lee, Cameron, and Peterson. Get the agenda out here. So we're gonna start with the declaration of conflict of interest. Bronwyn, no. Wyatt, no. I also said no. You guys might be. Kent is also a no, Cameron is a no. So item number C, review and possible approval of minutes for the February 8th meeting. Did anyone have anything on that? I thought they looked good.
I had a couple changes,
You guys have
but just little changes of what I said, like. It's a hardship period, this couple, can I just give this to you?
Yes,
You guys need to talk to your microphones.
just clarify.
Move to your mouth.
I have a few changes, I'll give to Crystal, they're not substantive, they're just
Clarifying your.
clarifying currently.
Anyone else?
Just to note, I did go through them and then sent whatever changes those were to Crystal, so they would have had those already, so.
Oh, those have already been made.
So those changes were already made, so that would just be your changes.
I read them good. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the, I make a motion that we approve the minutes from February 8th and March 8th, 2023, with a few changes that will begin to Crystal.
Second. Brown gave the motion, Wyatt seconded the motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so now we're gonna move. We're gonna skip commissioner comments. Does anyone have any objections? Just skipping the commissioner comments. It's a long meeting tonight anyway. Don, objections, to skipping the commissioner comments?
Skipping them or doing them for later?
I just want to skip them.
I think you should put them at the end, Kim.
In case you guys.
Sean, make it through the night.
Well, I'll entertain that motion.
Go ahead, Sean. Make a motion here, Fred.
Make a motion, we move commissioner comments down to the bottom of the agenda.
John's made the motion. Kent has seconded the motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thought about opposing. Okay, so the next item is item number E. This is gonna be open forum, 2 minutes per speaker. This is to talk about anything not on the agenda. Not on the agenda.
April McKeon, Virgin Utah residents. I just had one issue with what was on the public notice website for this meeting. It's not on the agenda. But there was a document, it's a UES geotech report 4430.22000019. It says it's for Jeff Lee, and the report shows the title page listed as parcel ID B-A8-A-11-A, which is a narrow strip of property that's not anywhere near Red Coyote property, but the geotech report had to do with the Red Coyote property that is on SR9. So I don't know why that document was in the public notice website for this meeting.
Right, thanks. I don't need it. So, anyone else for open forum? Let's move on. So I'll need a motion, a motion to close the public meeting and open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public meeting and open the public hearing.
Ronald made the motion. Do I have a second? I'll second. Wyatt seconded that motion. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, so now we're moving to the public hearing portion. Just a reminder for commissioners, this is the time for the public to speak, not for the commissioners to speak. Any questions directed at commission will need to be answered later. So there are 9 items on this public hearing today, so in the interest of time, we'll be limiting each speaker to 2 minutes. Per item, right? And the speaker may only speak once per item. We'd also ask that if you submitted written comments, that you let your written comments stand, and not speak at the public hearing. We won't stop you, but that's just a request. Because, everyone does have your letter that you sent in. All right, so we'll start with item number 1, an ordinance of the town. An ordinance of the town council of Virgin established. Let's see if I can read tonight. An ordinance of the town council of Virgin Town establishing the Virgin Town Joint Utility Committee and the set forth in purpose membership, chair, meetings, meeting procedures, duties, and powers. You can tell that I did not write that. So this is just to create a new committee. Anyone have any public comments on this, the formation of the new committee? So we'll move on to item number 2. An ordinance amending and restating sections 1 through 18 of chapter 16 conditions and conditional uses of the Virgin Uniform Land Use Ordinance to better establish the process, procedures, and criteria for the issuance and appeal of conditional use permits, CUPs, within the town. To add the term adversely affected party and a joint utility board to section 2.12 of the. Okay, so there's 3 parts in this. The change to the CUP procedure, the addition of the term adversely affected party, and the term joint utility board added to the definition. Anyone have any comment on the new conditional use permit application? Okay, we'll move on to item number 3, an ordinance of the town of Virgin, Utah, providing that the Virgin Uniform Land Use Code, VULU, be amended by revising section 44.06 A2 and 44.06 A4, entitled Location of said code, providing the location eligibility for the highway resort zone of the town of Virgin be revised. This would be removing an area from the highway resort zone eligibility regulations. Any comments on the highway resort zone?
Oh, Chuck Massler. So. No, you're not supposed to speak to us, but what is this changing? Is it changing everything for the west right now, all the way from the highway? You want to tell me that?
We'll answer your questions in the next segment.
So my comment is, I don't know why this is being changed, for one thing. The other is, we have an interest because we do have property to the west side of Culver. And there are no houses on Terrace Road at this time, so I don't understand the buffer.
They can't hear you back there, they're all. You just gotta really put that mic to your mouth.
All right, sorry, Chuck, sorry, okay. So, as far as I know, there's not a single home in Virgin on Fall Terrace Road, so I don't know what the meaning of this change is for, so that's my comment.
Hey,
Thanks, Chuck.
Find out what property he's talking about that he said was.
It's not contiguous right now, but there's access to it from Fall Terrace Road. We have access.
Anyone else have,
My concern with this is, highway resort zone 3. In our original plans, it was to be highway resort. Now we have to extend it all over the place, far from the highway. That highway may be Route 9.
thanks, Darlene. Anyone else on the highway resort zone? All right, so we're gonna move on to number 4. This is an ordinance amending chapter 60 and chapter 34 of the Virgin Uniform Land Use Ordinances. This is the further regulation of STRs in the overlay zones. And it also removes eligibility of STR overlay from residential. From the residential zone.
Clarification regarding both. This document one document it mentions 5 bedrooms and 10 people, but in the actual ordinance, am I missing it? I see the 5 bedrooms, but I don't see the 10 people. So I should include that again.
Back again. I was at a lot of the meetings when that.
By the way.
When that stone was put together. I would think that having it as a master overlay zone for residential makes sense to keep it that way. I don't have any interest in having a short-term rental at this time, but in that ordinance, it states that you have to be managed by one company. So if you had a 20-lot subdivision, you have a way to regulate those. If you have it in that overlay. If you don't, you would have the possibility of unlicensed short-term rentals, and you don't have that resource. So that's my comment. I wouldn't take it out.
Thank you, Chuck. Anyone wants on the short-term overlay?
Hello, good evening. My name is Devin Herman, and I'm here on behalf of a couple of folks. You probably got my letter, and I do respect the instruction there in regards to my representation, Jay Bars and Young and Jeff Staples, who are here. I'm also here, my firm, Snow Jensen and Reese, also represents. The microphone's kind of low, sorry, this is ducking down. Let's hold it here. Justin Christensen, who Matt Ans could not be here tonight. But Matt Ans represents Justin Christensen and has an interest in this ordinance as well. And asked me to be here and be present on his behalf. I brought copies of the letter. It sounds like you guys have this. I'd like to leave these copies here to make that an official part of the record, if that's all right. And just reiterate a little bit without taking a whole lot of your time that there are a lot of developers who are highly interested in this proposed change. There's a significant amount of investments that have been made, and those investment-backed interests, which we believe are reasonable, are somewhat threatened here. And we have made a formal request that there be a grandfathering or other accommodation for those properties that are under development and where investments have been made, checks have been written, and that would protect those investment-backed interests. And I'll drop the mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Devin.
Hello, my name is Seth Needs, and I am here representing Alina Taylor, who has a lot in Observation Estates, and also John Staples with Zion Edge subdivision. This proposed ordinance, if it passes, my clients could each suffer millions of dollars in damages, for which we believe the town could possibly be liable for, because this could result in a partial taking. Each of these clients have each spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in approving subdivisions, in building homes, each of which there was a permit applied for and approved for building permits and subdivision approvals. Somewhat like Devin stated, there are absolutely investment expectations for each of these subdivisions and parcels of land. Not only that, but we believe that the town would be stopped in applying this ordinance to each of these subdivisions, because each of my clients, they relied on and suffered a detriment by the town's actions in approving the subdivisions, building permits, and the short-term rental overlays. So just based on that, we feel that at least for these subdivisions, for Observation Estates and for the Zion Edge subdivisions, this proposed ordinance should not apply to them, and also should not even be passed. Lastly, we don't think there is a rational basis for this proposed ordinance. We do feel that the proposed ordinance is more related to the mayor and also the city council's own personal desires rather than a legitimate government purpose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Darlene Toth. Seems to me, I recall at the planning and zoning meeting where the subdivisions that are just mentioned, for which legal letters were delivered, was also the same meeting at which this ordinance was proposed. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if a piece of legislation has been proposed, then anything that is filed after has to be based on the pending legislation. And I believe these developers were at that meeting as well and knew of this. And so if they chose to move forward with this previous knowledge, I feel that it was an unfortunate choice on their point. And our elected officials do have a responsibility to look out for the people who are residents of this community. And we have grave concerns. And as has been spread throughout this county, so that county land actually put a pause on any new short-term rentals. And I think we have every right as a community to consider this. And they were at that meeting where this was first proposed before they had any.
Thank you, Darlene. And Darlene,
I could be wrong.
one comment per period, please, Darlene.
I didn't comment on this.
Yes, you did.
I apologize.
Thank you.
Jeff Staple, just for the record, this was not proposed at the time of our application. Our original application was well before, I think it was September, and we passed in October. And this was not presented at any time previous or at the same time.
Yeah.
Right, the timer start over.
Yeah, she'll get it.
Okay, great.
This thing.
Alina Taylor, I purchased the Observation Estates lot that's being developed right now. We're building a home there. And when I called in 2021, prior to purchasing this property, I called the town of Virgin. And I called and confirmed that it was approved for short-term rental. I also read the law and what you had in the ordinance, and it did not indicate anything that said there was a limitation to the number of bedrooms or the number of guests that could stay in the home. And I made a massive investment into this town to develop that for really nice family reunions. So now the town is basically doing a switch and bait, where I have invested hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars so far, probably about 700,000 so far, and have a massive loan with the bank where I am in debt to make up for that. And if this were to pass, I would lose that investment. And so I don't think it's okay for the town to do a switch and bait and to now do a taking of my investment based on what I understood and the permits that I applied for back in, back when I purchased it, and then further in October last year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nanette Wood. I'm trying to sort through some of the language I don't really understand. Are we basically in simple English talking about restricting Zion bed, the number of bedrooms and number of occupants? And is that the topic right now up for discussion? Yes, no?
We'll answer your question later in
Okay,
the meeting.
all right. Can I ask any questions or is it strategy?
You can ask, but we're just gonna take comments.
Okay, so as you know, I'm sure a bunch of Rio de Sion residents are here tonight. And of course, in plain English, our concern is that there are a number of massive two-story homes that are going to be built next to our community that will basically turn into party houses. So I mean, it goes without saying that will affect our lifestyle, that will affect our living situation, and we don't, it doesn't, we don't want it. So I don't know, I don't know what all the ordinances necessarily mean, but that's where many of us in that community stand. It's, we live there. We live there. Thanks.
Thank you. Annette.
Good evening, my name is Bob Kelly, and I live here. I'm just to raise an issue of question. I wish to raise an issue of question about if the city community approves a change in zoning from a lower to a higher density, is the city, the community, you and I, then obligated to supply water to every dwelling unit that's been approved? And if so, will that reduce the 300 or 400 that we got left down to whatever is then left? Which would then hurt possibly, probably other owners of smaller lots that are only gonna put one house on and one water draw. And I think this issue needs to be looked into and solved, and so that it is not a problem. And it is no longer a question. Thank you. I gotta go that way, Jim.
My name is Lauren Campbell. I'm not an attorney. I've been thought to play one on TV sometimes, but I'm not. I'm a resident of Rio de Sion here in Virgin. I'm also the president of the Rio de Sion Homeowners Association. I'm here to speak in favor of this ordinance. I think it's a reasonable ordinance. I don't want to live next to a party house. There's houses in St. George now that have not only bedroom restrictions, but they have no restrictions on beds. And they're finding that they're building homes now that have large rooms that have 12 bunk beds in them. I think the city has not only the right, but an obligation to address issues of public safety or concern as conditions change. And coming from Palm Desert, short-term rentals occupy 2/3 of every meeting in the town. Every planning commission meeting, every town council meeting. I warned of this a year ago when this subject first came up, and you're just beginning to feel the effects of it. I urge that you pass this ordinance restricting the limits to 5 bedrooms, and that you will also consider adding a limit in the number of people. And I've heard that the suggestion of 10 people per house with 5 bedrooms. So I would urge you to pass that ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren.
Good evening, James Purcell. I'm here representing Ryan Anderson. He owns one of the homes or lots in Observation Estates, right down the road over here. Just by way of brief history, Ryan purchased the land there about 2021. At the time he was told that short-term rentals would be allowed. That was one of the main reasons he was interested in purchasing the land. There was no limit on the number of people that could be there at the time. And he bought the lots and had them subdivided pursuant to 1 acre parcels. In and around that time, 2021, he also filed a plat map, got approved by the city, recorded. He also, in conjunction with that, recorded CC&Rs, and those were recorded and put on the town website. In the CC&R for 2021, they state that the homes that are now there for short-term rentals and 1 acre lots would be somewhere in the range between 3,000 to 5,000 square feet pursuant to covenants, so they had to abide by them. Pursuant to the plat that was approved and the CC&Rs that were recorded, no one objected to, my client proceeded to sell lots. There's only 5. One of them to one of the people we heard from earlier today on the reliance that the short-term rentals, they have big homes, it's the covenant that runs the land. And so we sold them, and he sold them for a premium based upon those representations. So we would ask that the committee today deny the approval. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's exhibited by this example I just gave you here. Whereas if you were to say, hey, the cap is at 10, you'd have extremely negative impacts, not only for people who bought lots, but also my client who sold them for a premium, and there could be potential legal liability, not only for us, but other people, in as much as those representations were made and relied on, and thousands, tens of hundreds of thousands have been spent in reliance, at least with this subdivision alone. Thank you.
Thank you, James.
My name is Joe Martinez, and I live in Rio de Sion. I'm just gonna make a quick comment. When the investors are gone and when the developers are gone, it's us homeowners who are residents and voters in this town are gonna have to live with the ramifications of this decisions. They will be gone in their own communities, and we will have to live with this decision. So I'm urging you to go and pass and send it to the town council. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Chairman, my name is Nathan Fisher. I represent John Staples Development. I appreciate the comments that have been made thus far. In fact, I'll adopt them for the record on behalf of, as far as those against, or at least recommending to this body to recommend denial of this application to change or revise the ordinance. I appreciate the comments that have been made by the individual that referred to St. George and what he said is a problem in St. George. I sit on the planning commission of St. George. And in fact, what we found there at St. George is of all the properties that we deal with out there, it is the short-term rental arena that we can control the most and manage the expectations out there, not only for the property owners, but for the neighbors. And that with the ordinance, we've been able to include reasonable restrictions that manage the impact of the short-term rental on the neighbors, including noise, light, the light candles at the borders of the property. All of the problems that, and the same thing came up in those meetings that, of course, the neighbors, and it's understandable, they're afraid of the unknown or what can happen. But what it has turned out to be is an area of the city that is in better control than the normal residential neighborhoods where anybody can come in and stay with family or have friends there, where the parties do occur, and the only way to police it is with the local police department with a call. So there are ways to manage it, and I think if that is the current concern, obviously in reading through this, it wasn't clear to me what the main concerns are by just limiting it to 10 individuals and 5 bedrooms. But if it is noise, or if it is the partying that they're concerned about, then it can be addressed surgically or narrowly. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I apologize, I can't see it. Didn't even hear a beep, being. Thank you, Nathan, sorry. Got distracted. Anyone else? Don't you dare, Mark. Stay in your seat. All right. We'll move on to number 5. This is proposed subdivision preliminary plat, 12 Mesa subdivision from Jeff Lee. Located B21264421 south of Rio de Janeiro. Any public comment on the proposed preliminary plat?
My name is Joe Martinez. I live in one of the properties immediately adjacent to the Quell Mesa application. So I would be adversely affected party if the project continues without adherence to all requirements of VULU. I reviewed the few documents that have been turned in, and I have already serious concerns about the portions of the studies. In the Universal Engineer Studies slope study, it indicates the placement priority of the septic system should be given to the wash to the southeast or the bottom of the mesa slope to the north. In the septic system feasibility proposal by Roger A. New, he only indicated plans for the bottom of the mesa for septic leach lines, no consideration to the wash to the southeast. Further, the report states that the soils conditions are marginal already on the slopes. The proposed leach lines sit only a few feet away from Rio de Sion leach lines, and our building grade is only 8 to 10 feet below the proposed leach lines. With an unstable slope of more than 30 degrees, I'm very concerned about the further increasing and the instability of the slope. The study calculates the discharge of wastewater would be 20 lots, 450 gallons per day equals 900 gallons per day. Add to that to the leach lines of the 11 homes along Entrada, 11 times 450 gallons for an additional discharge up to the leach lines of 4,950 gallons per day, with a total discharge along the property line on almost 14,000 gallons per day. That is equivalent to our 30,000 gallon swimming pool filled with wastewater being dumped on the slopes every 2 days. That's over 5 million gallons of water, wastewater being dumped onto the already unstable slope a year. I have many other concerns with the few reports already submitted, but I'm gonna withhold the comments until all the required reports are submitted. The only action allowed under BULU is for the Virgin Planning and Zoning Commission not to consider the application until all requirements have been submitted. Thank you very much for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Joe. Anyone else on the 12 Mesa subdivision?
My name is Lauren Campbell, president of Virgin. My only concern is that I don't believe that the Planning and Zoning Commission should be making a decision tonight. I think that BULU clearly identifies the elements that are required under BULU that the Planning Commission must have before they can consider an application complete. And I prepared a list of those requirements, different than the 41-page letter I sent you all earlier this week. This was a little bit easier to read. I listed all the requirements that are in BULU, and they're all requirements. They're not shoulds or might be's or maybes. These are all shalls or requirements. And 38 of them have not been supplied. I see no way that you can make an informed decision on the viability of feasibility of this development without requiring all the elements to be required. And I would be an adversely affected property. I urge that the Planning Commission return the application to the applicant for them to complete all the required studies before this item is considered for either denial or approval for a recommendation to the town council. And I'll provide this list.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. All right, if there's no one else, move on to number 6. This is a conditional use permit for Kirk Barker. Ensign Hospitality. V2121-20001. 2-story, 100-room hotel. Separated into 3 separate buildings with surface parking, outdoor pool and amenities. We'll take public comment on the conditional use permit application. Darlene?
April McKeon. I noticed that the Hyatt Place plan shows 2 entrances off of Highway 9. The frontage width of the parcel is approximately 580 feet. And that distance does not allow 2 entrances. Also, along the east end of the property, there is a wash and a guardrail that extends several feet to the west of the property line. The location of the entrance to Fort Zion also excludes the possibility of 2 entrances off of SR 9 onto the Hyatt Place property, because those distances are not large enough. So similarly to our Liberty project, we weren't allowed to have an entrance off of SR9 into the Breed project because the distance between Sheepridge Road and 1520 West is 1,000 feet. And so this frontage does not allow three entrances.
Thank you, April.
My back hurts, so I'm not gonna bend over. Pat Galvin, I live here in Virgin. I'm looking at this 100-room hotel on the west side of town, conditional use permit. To my knowledge, that's been zoned commercial for many years, not highway resort zone, and now they put in a hotel on the west side. And I guess the thing that gets me, 100 rooms, this is two-part, but 100 rooms is a lot of water. And our town council at their next meeting is still looking at getting involved possibly with Washington County Water Conservation District about where water is going to come from for this community. I think the cart is getting ahead of the horse. I think new big project, big water uses should not be addressed until we have a good water plan going forward. We've had months and months and months trying to figure out what's going to go on with water, the big projects. When are we going to hit our $1,000 or 1,000 water rates? And I haven't seen anything definite, but I've been gone a couple months. So maybe I'm outdated, but this is a big project. There's going to need a lot of water. And I don't think it should be approved at this point for the town. Together with planning and zoning and town council has a plan for all of us that live here. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
Darlene. I'm a resident of Virgin. This is an incomplete application and should not be even considered. It violates many aspects of the law. To start with, the 100-room hotel. There is, the maximum is, with bonuses, is 15 per acre. And the hotel is marked, correct me if I'm incorrect, but I believe it is on 4 acres, which would mean 60 maximum. There is no mention of bonuses allowances. The maximum square footage for a footprint without any kind of bonuses, of which there is no mention and there's no table on this and in the limited documents or document we have for this project is 11, 11, and 10. And it should be 3. The maximum footprint per building is 3. That is just the beginning. There is a mention of changing our Hulu for height, but no explanation of how that bonus would be. There is no mention of how many water hookups this would take. I estimate between the two projects about 100 total. Not to mention, we are all well aware in Virgin that our access to electricity is limited on new projects. I reiterate the 2 entrances. It's poorly done. It looks rushed. It does not honor our Lulu. It does not honor our laws. And people in this town are not against development, but we want our laws to be followed. There's no mention of protecting borders or anything like that. There's nothing to this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to number 7, conditional use permit, Kirk Barker, Ensign Hospitality in the E2121, let's say number 20001, 2-story, 72-unit multifamily project with exterior stair and breezeways separated into 3 separate 24-unit buildings with surface parking.
April McKeon. So one of my, comments is that they call it a multi-family project. And I don't see that listed anywhere in Lulu. A definition of a multi-family project. I don't know what that is. And a multi-family project is also not listed in chapter 40 under commercial zone as a permitted use or a conditional use. And just like all these conditional use permits that have been submitted, they don't tick all the boxes. They don't have the information that's required in Lulu. We've been through this how many times where a CUP is submitted and the description of the project isn't included. There's no details. We don't have any idea what the project looks like except for some, minor concept plan. And so I cannot imagine the planning and zoning accepting a project that's probably going to be appealed again because it doesn't follow rules. Maybe we could start really respecting our ordinances, planning and zoning committee. That would be a great place for us to be. Thank you very much.
Thanks, April.
Pat Galvez, Virgin resident. So I could change 100 of item 6 to 72 and item 7. And say everything that I already said. Item 7, though, does get me wondering what multifamily project is. And I look at both of the parcels, they're the same parcel for both projects. Whatever the density factor was that Darlene talked about earlier, it looks even denser now. I don't know how many things are gonna be crammed into that property, but it looks pretty crowded. I did look up, and I'm gonna say Ensign instead of Enzyme Hospitality on the internet. Found out they have resort properties and they own a lot in Springdale, several motels. And they market themselves as a very high-end, high-class resort or vacation or things of that nature. So I think this multifamily project, from my assumption, since it's on Lulu, is another resort property for multiple tenants. I don't really know. There's not a lot of information, but I do support the fact that these applications are being turned into you and they're not complete. You should give them back to the people and say, here's the balloons, find your data, and give us what we need. Don't make our lives hell. I used to hire employees. If their application was incomplete, they would not hire. I'd say, come back in a month, reapply, complete your paperwork as directed. Don't put us in the wrong spot. There's a reason we have these processes, reason we have these rules. I agree, let's follow them and make ourselves a better community. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Lauren Campbell, Virgin resident, back again, and all I urge is that the planning and zoning commission look at in details at the requirements under Lulu and follow them. I know that later on the agenda tonight, you're going to be considering revisions to Lulu 1602. I was the party that was one of the appellants in that case that caused the town council to look at those ordinances and consider revisions to make it clearer on what the responsibilities were. I know you're going to be considering that tonight, but the requirements of the documents required and the studies required have not really changed substantially in my review. I have not looked at the plans for this development for either one of the CUPs, but I urge that the Planning and Zoning Commission look carefully and make sure that you're following all the requirements that are outlined in Lulu. That is your responsibility being on this planning commission. It's your responsibility to follow Lulu, and I urge you to do it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.
Yeah. I'm here again because of a word. The word is multifamily and the word is resort. Come to you with 53 years of management, ownership and financing of commercial rental properties. I rehab 260 units in 25 years. I put the first MLS system in the country on computer in 77. I've taught real estate practices and real estate law. The word resort says, no children, let's have a party. Bring your girlfriend, bring your buddy's wife, or whoever it is, it's a party. It's not a multifamily. This is a very smooth, professional misuse of the English language, of which I happen to be a master. I had to teach myself how to do it to make sure it wasn't done to me. This is not a multifamily unit, this is a party house. I come to you with experience talking about it. I evicted a couple of hundred of them over 30 years. But this is smooth language, and it's deceptive and wrong. And that needs to be recognized by everybody here. Fellow before me used to, you just push my button. But I resent someone doing this to us. It's wrong. And maybe he, she, them need to be identified and kicked out. Thank you.
Thank you. And that was you off Kelly, by the way. Start the record. Thanks, Bob.
Kurt Barker, Ensign Hospitality. Just think about what my family means, it's hard. Kurt is
Get that off and talking.
multifamily apartments, so that's what we applied for. If it was a hotel use, we would have asked for a second conditional use. So there's a distinction between multifamily / apartments and hotels. So in terms of the highway concerns, certainly we'll work with UDOT, and UDOT will dictate how many access points we can provide out with the highway. If you have a flag lot.
Get kicked off. Get kicked off.
Yeah.
Slow it down, down.
All right, so we'll work with UDOT in terms of the access points and provide access. But the intent of up to 2 separate conditional use permits, one is for hotel use, the second is for apartment. Thanks.
Thank you, Kurt.
So thank you for that clarification. Hulu does not have any language on apartments. We Google search apartments in our Hulu. They aren't allowed here. I want to repeat, sewage, water, electricity. Under the application in 16.04, an estimate of the number of employees, a summary of the type of equipment, buildings to be involved, particularly sewage. There's no mention of sewage anywhere in the document. A listing of all the utilities which will be in place, a timeline, an expected time due. These CUPs are big, they go with the property. And there's been multiple times, and I'm living through it now, where they've caused my investment of hundreds of thousands of dollars on my home to be at risk and to go down. We need to also consider that. Bulu was not followed, you know, Bulu 16. And I'm going by the established rule, not the proposed new one. It wasn't done. The things about UDOT, that should have been done before. And I can tell you right now, that's 1,000 feet. And so the option is a narrow strip of land towards the back of the property through apartments which aren't even in our code. So how can they possibly be regulated if they're not in our code? And a 100-room hotel is going to need 72 apartments, even though the 100-room hotel violates the Hulu. This cannot go through. It needs to go back to the drawing board. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene.
Ron Staples. I've been listening to her come up here multiple times tonight, and I just wondered, she doesn't want any big houses. She doesn't want any multifamily.
John, can we keep the comments straight to the item on hand?
Yes, I apologize.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna move to 8. This is an ordinance amending chapter 8.40, outdoor lighting of the Virgin Uniform Land Use Ordinance. This ordinance will create new guidance for outdoor lighting. This ordinance does not change any of the existing requirements that already exist in chapter 8 for lighting. Any comments on this item now?
Chair, can I make a further request to the public that comments are about the ordinance itself? We've heard a lot about dark sky and our need for that. And we've got plenty of comment about that, like comments specifically about the ordinance itself and how that's needs to be adjusted or changed or approved.
So instructed. Thank you, Sean.
So I have one comment about the ordinance as it is written. And that is the lack of the word shall. Everything say, may, encourage. And so basically, this is the gutless ordinance. When you use words like may, then, right? Why even have it? And we want the community, many voices in this community want that protection. And so it looks like it's doing a good thing, but it's really letting anybody do what they want.
Thanks, Darlene.
Lauren Campbell back again. I'm in favor of this ordinance. I do have 3 suggestions that I'd like you to consider. First of all, on the light color temperature, you're recommending that the upper standard be a maximum of 3,500 K. 3,500 K is very, very bright for outdoor lighting. I would really recommend that you consider changing that to 2,700 K. That's much more acceptable for outdoor lighting. 3,500 K is suitable for like a kitchen or a bathroom. The other item is the same thing in the glare, where you're saying lighting application requiring a light with color temperature above 3,500 should be shielded. That's way too high. That's going to be way too bright if you're really wanting to have protection from glare at the street. And the third comment is you've got a paragraph on light output. And I would agree with the previous comment that it uses the word generally. You should have a standard. And it should probably be based on standard like foot candles. And what I've usually seen for outdoor lighting standards is a foot candle reading 10 feet from the source. That's usually the accepted standard. And you should take the time to figure out what that standard should be. I don't have any recommendations on what that number should be, but I think that should be in the ordinance, because otherwise you have a toothless ordinance that won't do anything to change the dark sky conditions. So I applaud you for your efforts. I just think you need to think it through just a little bit more and maybe make some more refinements to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. All right, we'll move on to number 9. This is an ordinance amending chapter 2.12, 6.12, 16, 16.4, 16.06, 16.05 of the Virgin Land Use Ordinance, those adversely affected parties. So this one goes through and changes the wording within our ordinances to reflect the term adversely affected party. We'll take public comment on it at this time. All right. I'll take a motion.
I make a motion now, we close the public hearing and open public meeting.
Ronald made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Sean seconded the motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, now we'll move into the public meeting part. We'll start with ordinance number 1. This is the ordinance from the town council of Virgin Town establishing the Virgin Town Joint Utility Committee and setting forth its purpose, membership, chair, meeting procedures, duties, and powers. Do I have anything on this thing?
Well, I think that this from the town council is a great start at getting the process more organized and appropriately addressing concerns at the right time for the right meeting. I love it. I think generally it's a great idea. So I think the town council is doing us a favor. Did you hear me, person? Okay, I said, I think this committee is an excellent idea to help us get organized appropriately.
Anyone else?
Do have kind of general comments and then question about it in general as well. I know this came to the lawyer, to town council, and they were discussing this. Just process. I wish we had had a little bit more time before we put on a public hearing. So then we'd also get a chance to review it, look at it previous to it already being put on a public hearing. So at least the typos could be checked, because we have to send ours in to have, and then reviewed by the lawyer, reviewed by everybody. I think it should go back the same way. I don't have a problem with the concept and the idea, except just one question: what incentive do these people who are supposed to be on this committee have to come to a meeting? It sounds like once a month. To join this. Just a general question. It doesn't even need to be answered now, but we may see that as a problem. There's nothing in here that says, are we gonna end up paying them? Are we gonna end up, is it a benefit to them to have them all in one place? I don't know the answer to these questions, but it will be asked.
That's a good thing to suggest that the town council decide.
Consider.
Yeah.
No, I didn't see in there where it required a monthly meeting.
Yeah.
I read it.
I just over that for you. Probably because I read Lauren's 41-page letter. 20. What's a joke?
You guys sound like you're rock stars.
Lauren heard me, that's all.
So, 20.10 of that ordinance speaks specifically to meetings and meeting procedure. Says the Virgin Joint Utility Committee shall not, or shall meet as frequently as needed, but in no instance less than once per month.
But it does leave many options. I mean, they can telephone in, they can. But there's no incentive at this point. Are we gonna start creating, I do not like regional decisions, so I know they're a recommending body to us
That's
as
right.
planning and zoning. I don't want this being created to negate what planning and zoning's purpose and role is. It kind of felt like that was
Well, there are some towns who do use these kind of committees and replace their planning and zoning commission, so I directly asked them if that was the intentions of the town council and the attorney or whatever, and they said no, that it's mainly as, they just noticed how varied we are with the condition of our ordinances, and they're trying to help us get a process in place so things can go through clearly and more efficient.
So each one of these agencies and individual or utility companies are going to be reviewing the plans, and looking at them. It's nice to have them all in one.
Well, yeah, because
place.
then we'll have the approvals and the,
I just,
So let's not talk over each other, please.
sorry.
so I think it's going to, it's a good start, like you said, but it does need some more meat in it, because let's see.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we approve. Or recommend for approval, or send back to them. Maybe you say that.
Recommend for approval.
Recommend for approval. Hold on, I found my paper, just read it from your end, Cameron. The ordinance of the town council of Virgin establishing the Virgin Town Joint Utility Committee, JUC, and putting forth its purposes.
I second. Ron made the motion to recommend approval of the ordinance, and seconded the motion. Any further discussion?
I think my concern was similar to what John had said about it being a way to bypass the planning commission or stop things before it comes to planning commission. So like, I worry about it being used maliciously. And some of the issues that have come up recently, like that's just a worry of mine. Anytime you add more committees and more government, there's a possibility of them being used maliciously in any level of government. So that is my concern with adding more committees to what we're doing. Personally.
Right.
Red tape.
Thanks, Wyatt.
Just one more comment. Okay. I just don't want more meetings.
You don't have to come.
And according to this, I could technically,
You could come, but you need to
or I
like.
can put somebody on that, of course, but I would be one of the affected entities, so. Just letting everybody know, I'll have a conflict almost in this one, because I would be involved, I could be involved. With being part of a special citizen.
I do like that it is. One thing I do like about it is that it is chaired by the zoning administrator and not an elected official. So it's not a popularity contest, but it's what. I just realized that.
I do sit on a technical advisory committee. For flood control as well, and it's very good. Bunch of engineers sitting around talking about engineered data. It's really exciting, but it's effective, and then that's sent on to the body that actually votes on it. So I like this.
I think that one of the things that I like about this idea of forming some committees in town, capital improvements, utility, is that it's getting ahead of it to help us. And there are things that we have to be cautious about, and we need to be vigilant about what purposes and ideas may come from that committee, but let them vet that we get the ones to decide whether or not it's going forward from us.
Since this involves the chair of the planning commission director, will do my comment, so.
Depends.
Yeah. Yeah. Monthly's too often, I think sometimes, so.
Yeah, recuse yourself.
So the question's been called, we'll vote. Wrong.
Yes. Oh, wait. Wait.
Where does it say anything about the chair?
That's what he said.
The zoning administrator, it says zoning administrator.
Oh,
Get out of the meeting.
my bad, listen. You don't have to pay attention.
Thank you. Please, Lynn. So, yes,
Wrong is yes. Wyatt?
Yes.
Wyatt says yes, Cameron is no. Kent?
Yes,
Yes, Sean?
Can I have an explanation of your no?
Monthly is just too much.
Man, I'd almost agree, but it's already
I've
passed.
sat here for 6 years, sometimes monthly is too much. The motion passes.
I think it actually saved you meetings, because I was gonna make you get organized, Cameron, and all kinds of work meetings in this body, so. Just saved you.
You guys put me in charge, you can't make me do anything.
I would try.
Alright, so move on to number 2. This is an ordinance amending and restating the sections 1 through 18 of chapter 16, the conditional use process. And to define adversely affected party and joint utility.
So we've all read that, and we're gonna need those definitions in there, so I just think motion, we push those right through.
Ronald's made a motion to,
Push them right through. Come on, Cameron. Oh, you're gonna make, oh, you got it then, baby. An ordinance amending and restating sections 1 through 18 of chapter 18, conditions and conditional use of the divergent uniform land use ordinance was food to better establish the process, procedures, and criteria for the issuance of appeals, conditional use permit in the town of whatever. How about that?
you recommending approval?
Yes, please.
Ronald's made a motion to recommend approval of item. Do I have a second? There's no second, the motion fails.
Oh,
Discussion.
did I not read that? Do I have to read it again?
You can do it again, and
All right.
they were gonna have some discussion.
Have you seen
Go
our
ahead,
agenda?
Ken.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ken.
I'm in favor of this. I think that, one of the things that concerns me in our town and our size of less than 1,000 people is that pretty much everybody is adversely affected no matter what. And I think that we need to be able to maintain that for some time still. As far as, whether or not you are a property order or you have property on a project. And you may feel, be required to notify you of, any changes that may affect you as a bordering property owner. But I do, believe that adversely affected persons, parties, and people, according to the state's definition, allows in section B of that paragraph, that, adversely affected parties and the people who feel that they are adversely and present that forward to the town. So I'm in favor of this and believe it's a good addition to the ordinance.
Thanks, Ken. Anyone else?
You ready? I've got a few things. I actually went through and compared what was in there in our ordinances now to this to see where the changes were. Because unlike the process we do, this was all redone all at once. And so I wanted to see I'm not gonna bore you with where those changes were. There were slight changes in 16.02. I did have a question though on 16.02B. Oh, one, underneath that, a permit is not required if. And it says at the bottom, the proposed conditional use is similar or compatible with the current use identified in the CUP issued to the property without adding additional impact to the surrounding area as determined by the zoning administrator. I thought we were trying to get away from that, but yeah, in this case, he's determining that it doesn't require a CUP. That's his determination. So my question was, is this also in the determination, does that have to go before that committee that we just approved? It just needs to be clarified that doesn't need to be done. So when we send it to the town council, if they can clarify that, that would be helpful. Everything in 1604 was pretty much the same. Just adding the word condition or conditional use where it needed to be. At the end of that section, 16.04, there's the staff application completeness review. It was just worded. And there was just slight changes at the very end of it, and that needs to be re-looked at. I'm not gonna make suggestions because it's town council's call on that one. But there is one spot that does absolutely need to be changed, and maybe we can provide some suggestions to them. 16.05A1. The very last sentence, I won't bore you with the rest of it, but the last sentence says, should the JUB determine that, is it JUB or JUC?
JCC.
Okay, it says JUB on mine unless my eyes are weird. Okay, so fix that one. Determine that additional information plans or studies are needed. It may require applicant to provide such prior to said report of recommendation is issued. Did any of that make sense?
Not when you read first.
Yeah, I read it a little monotone on purpose, but it doesn't say what it's supposed to
Okay, so
say.
what's your suggestion?
At least one comma would be nice. It may require applicant to provide. It's asking to provide the previous stuff. So it can be added into the report and recommendation. That is issued. I think there's supposed to be a back in there. So. They're taking notes over there, so I'll let them do it.
Okay.
So. And then there was. On. Let's see, would be that same section that B. Number 3, or number 4, actually is a subsection of number 3. Did you guys catch that? You're on that. So it's 16.05, you go down to B. And then you go down to number 4. Number 4 is actually a subtext number 3, which then changes the number just slightly. So it's talking about the costs related to that, the application, sending out letters. That's just a subsection, not a big deal. Of that same section, I just wondered if C, the last under conditional use standards of review, I wonder if that's a little bit redundant because we just went through what those review process is, and then we just state it again in a paragraph. Doesn't need to be taken out, but and then the last sentence of that, they're missing an as. It says as well any, it should say as well as any. On that last sentence. Of C. Let's. Okay, and then I did have a question on 16.06A, right of appeal or standing. It says the CUP applicant, the town, or an adversely affected party may appeal the planning and zoning commission's decision on a CUP. My question is. Or comment would be, we have to define how the town. In this case, how the town becomes the affected party. Because the town is the appeal authority as well. So it's only in certain situations that the town become or can appeal. Otherwise, every decision we make, the town could then say, no, we don't like that, we're going to appeal it ourselves, rather than an affected party or somebody else. So then it negates everything the planning and zoning does as the land use authority in that case. So the town in this instance needs to define what instances they can appeal as the town. Otherwise, it's the applicant or the affected party. And then in 16.06C, appeal to appeal authority. Who is determining the standing and when? It's not listed in there. And that needs to be addressed because it just says upon receipt of a completed CUP appeal package from a person with standing. Who's determining who has that standing, or is that the purpose of the appeal? And that's why we had affected party put into there. Somebody needs to be able to determine who that, if that person has a standing, so we can, the town can accept that. So add that in. Other than that.
Was that last one, Sean? Sorry.
I think it was
1606C. You're talking about adding who would make that determination if the town appeals the decision, right?
no, on C. The who is determining the standing?
Oh,
Who determines that? Is it the zoning administrator determines that? Is it the town council that determines that? Is it the lawyer?
Do I have another comment? Can I answer?
go ahead, Ron.
Well, I'm not actually, I'm not gonna actually answer. I'm gonna just say, so I've had a couple conversations and the town council is aware that there's a lot of, I should have said this, I apologize. They're aware of just about everything that you talked about. There's, you've got to clean up their language and their clarity. So it's not, and so I was even asked by one town council, don't make changes for us, just, we know that we have to do it.
And I'm not.
So, but I actually think you should send that, did you write them all down?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, well, I think we should, somebody else besides me should make a motion to send this along.
The G's were tight.
Oh, good. You're not doing anything.
There is one more typo, and I'll send that. But- So I will make a motion that we recommend approval of the ordinance changing chapter 16 to the town council, along with the suggested typo and grammar and yeah, other fixes suggested here.
I second that.
Sean, wait, 1 second. Sean made the motion to recommend approval, with the changes as he has outlined. Bronwyn has seconded that motion. Further discussion, Ken?
I would amend that to state that Sean should not only read that, but should be there to help the council, to, put that word in.
I wish I could, but Tuesdays are. I have other obligations, our meetings are always on Tuesday.
I withdraw your
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Just a question. So previous meetings, we've had a discussion about, they send it to us from council. It's either approval or denial of what they send us, correct? Right, so if we don't like it the way it is, then we approved it or recommend denial, right?
And if you want lots more meetings.
Well, I'm just saying that. But it doesn't fall to it as well, okay.
You can suggest changes just like what Sean is doing,
Okay,
and he's giving us his type comments, that's all.
perfect. Okay, I just know that's been an issue in the past.
Thank you. Any additional discussion? Vote, Sean?
Yes.
Ken?
Yes.
Cameron, yes. Wyatt? Yes.
Yes.
Bronwyn, yes. John, I'll need you to attach, somehow attach those.
Easy.
Or maybe you can just, can you just write up the, request for action for that ordinance? Thank you.
Yeah. Can I make a quick comment about what Wyatt was saying? I did read what it says in our ordinance. It says we get to send, if they send us something, we have to send that back within 30 days of the public hearing. So it does actually give us a chance to have it for another meeting if we want, but typically, like you say, if we don't like it, we just deny it, right, and then let them deal with it because it's theirs. But I would appreciate it if we get the same respect of, hey, let us look at something, go through it, at least see it before it gets a public hearing. And then we got all the typos that we got.
You did a really good job on that. Everybody did.
I think it wasn't a long ordinance.
Okay, we will move on to item number 3.
You're on, I do agree. You're on that.
No, we just voted on item number 2. We're moving on to number 3. We recommended approval on item number 2.
Yes. But it's part of that, it's not the tree.
No, Sean's still making comment.
Oh, no.
Just kidding, Sean. All right, number 3, ordinance of the town of Virgin, Utah, providing that the Virgin Uniform Land Use Code be amended to revisit section 40.06 A2 and A4. Location of said codes, providing the location eligible to cover resorts of the town of Virgin to be realized. So this is the division of the location. We talked about this in the meeting.
Couldn't have read that any more monotone.
I could have.
You could have actually.
Crystal, could you put up the county map on that? Is there, well, that's the one I gave you, which is a little too small. Can you look it up and give us a little more to look at?
I think that's probably Aaron.
Yeah, but she might be able to get it.
Let's pull up this map. I don't have like, you know.
I can't find that.
Well, this one?
Yeah,
Found the map.
that's good.
There you go.
Thanks. Hey, Chris, I'm not seeing this ordinance in the folder, actually.
Number C. Look at the next. Does HRD ordinance?
That's what the Oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks. I was looking for chapter 40.
That's what I was.
Well, could I comment?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Was it Chuck that was talking about this? Is Chuck still here? What we're trying to do on this ordinance is, the town's ordinance allows for certain areas on, SR9 and Co-op Terrace Road that abut it to be eligible for highway resort zones. It doesn't mean that they are. They may be commercial, they may be rural residential currently. But those sections of the town that abut those two main arteries are eligible to be considered. And what we're trying to do here in this ordinance proposal is to, instead of it saying east and west on Co-op Terrace Road, we're only talking about Co-op Terrace Road in the city boundaries. We're proposing that the eligibility not be allowed or removed, the eligibility be removed from the west side. Most of the landowners from SR9 up to Pocketville are Water Conservancy District and the BLM. So the town council, in discussion about it, has proposed that the removal of the eligibility be from the top of Pocketville Road to the city boundary north. So that the west side of Pocketville Road, correction, the west side of Co-op Terrace Road would not be eligible any longer at this time under city ordinance or highway resort zone consideration. The east side would remain that from SR9 on up to the city boundary. And from SR9 on the east side and SR9 up to Co-op Pocketville Road on the west side. But from Pocketville Road north to the town boundary, that site would no longer be eligible for highway resort zone. Most of this is owned by the BLM. And the BLM is under proposal to auction it. And we feel pertinent that we make a decision for the BLM property owner that piece of property not be eligible for HRZ highway resort zone, so that they can properly register their auction. This provides for more continuity for the rural residential people that live along that area next to the BLM, and for the Pocketville Road neighborhood to for people who have residential areas, so that they're more conducive rather than to allowing HRD to move into that section.
Any additional?
Go ahead.
So am I understanding correctly that, is serves as some protection for the residential areas there and leaves open a better possibility for things like parks and ball fields and some other uses of that, of the land in that area that would be neighborhood friendly and family.
So this area basically surrounds the BMX park.
Okay,
And there, for a long time, been some dreams and hopes that, and plans that town as it grows may have a sports complex, so to speak, in that area. It might be soccer fields, or such. Don't like soccer?
he doesn't want to have to go to games.
That is soccer for the rest of the world.
That's for the rest of the communist world.
Baseball,
Yeah, we can do
baseball park, community center pool,
Okay,
down the road, but that's kind of an idea of where that might be able to grow to if we,
okay,
keep that.
thank you.
I read it probably 10 different times before I finally quite understood what was trying to be said.
Me too.
I think we could probably simplify number 2 and 3. Because you're adding a whole nother number into there. But 2 of those numbers are about the same road. So is there a better way we could say
Let's have the town council send the attorney to make sure.
number 2 added to number 3? Would be my proposal on that, because it's, yeah, super clear. No, just that we know what we want. We want everything, nothing off of Pocketville Road, and everything north of Pocketville Road and Co-op Terrace. Everything north of there, that's that BLM land. Is there any other land south of that you want?
At this moment, with the property owners there, I don't think, in consideration of the property owners that are order SR9 and Co-op Terrace, those property owners are eligible with their properties to stay in the HRD eligibility because they're on SR9. And other than Water Conservancy District and BLM. And
Right. Crystal, could I request that you put the other map back up, so. I can.
That one?
Yes,
I don't.
I don't have my points today. Okay, so the little tiny sliver coming into from the top, that's Pocketville Road, correct? And that yellow rectangle coming down is the BLM piece that goes all the way to the North Hills. Okay, all BLM, but it comes across that road right there. Okay, and that is BLM. So if somebody was to, say, purchase that BLM land on auction, would they still be eligible on this side of the
on
road?
the east side,
Yes,
because under how it's written, yes. But the town council is under consideration of maybe looking at, no.
because the line that we had, I thought was that line. That's listed currently in our ordinance. I thought it was that south line of that property, BLM property. And so then it did actually come this side of the road.
It's mostly riparian. The big portion of it's riparian.
I know, I'm just saying in the ordinance, I think what it said about the section line. The T41.
No, that section line is completely different.
Is that a different one? Okay, I'm just making sure, we could make it there, and then it would make everything eligible down that way and easy. Can we just make that suggestion and move on?
I'm confused a little bit, Ken, because what you're saying and what this actually says is different. So you said, because you're saying that this ordinance would remove everything on the west side of Co-op Terrace Road, would remove anything on the west side out of consideration for the highway resort zone.
That's what we originally thought.
Yeah. But that's not what this ordinance does.
That's right.
Okay.
Because the town council, the town council decided or commented that they thought the corner should be Pocketville.
Yeah, because of the property owners.
I'm not sure how that works. Geographically, my opinion is that it should be the crest of the water tank hill. That the west side should be included in the southeast side. Where the city, where the county dump is and the water and so forth should not, but I think Pocketville draws that line.
Okay, so you, okay, I was just confused. Okay, I'm not doing like that. And then the comment to your point, Sean, I think it's actually better to have it separated out in the two sections. I think it reads easier. Even though it makes it longer, I think it reads
You have to
easier.
read it 10 times to understand.
No. Well, only because what we discussed and what it's saying is
We could
different.
just simply say from the intersection of Pocketville Road and Co-op Terrace Road, everything north is ineligible.
The west.
It's almost a straight line. It used to just go straight into there. Moved it to connect, so that intersection from there. Anything you can't access from Pocketville Road, so you already have that in eligible. And then it's only Co-op Road that you're talking about. Just simplify it. Intersection of that, everything north.
East and west.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this does say east and west and the thing, but, so the only thing is, Sean, is that the east of the western quarter section line of whatever those random numbers are,
That can be taken out.
that actually should stay in my opinion. That's the section line that runs north and south and approximately through just behind the water tower.
It's north and south, that's where that's at, you're right.
It runs north and south, and that was so that the highway resort zone didn't creep over the hill.
Yes.
So that,
So that's how it's currently.
yes, and I think that should stay in, that it's been taken out. The way it's written now, that would need to be removed. My opinion is it would need to be moved to and put back in.
So
I agree with that.
are we in a huge rush on this? Can we?
I think there's some kind of constraints.
Well,
Because of the option.
I disagree on that one.
There's not time constraints.
I'm concerned about time.
Oh, there is time.
Yeah, there is a time concern. Updating it to the BLM so that they have time to execute their requirements for auction.
I think if we're doing it under the premise that the town may want to purchase that property one day for maybe a sports field. Or maybe I think that premise is completely wrong and we shouldn't change the current zone. If it's for other concerns, I think that maybe there should be some consideration. But personally, I think that changing the zone for the town to maybe purchase it one day, I think is wrong.
So that was just my little dreamy thing. That's not his reasons. for it.
Right, but I've
So
heard,
that's just, I think that's something that another potential good thing that I wanted to mention because it makes me happy. So, but no, that's not good. And the reason is to protect the neighborhood.
I think it's great if the town wants to do that, but they ought to pony up the money and buy it just like everyone else has.
Well, we'll put that on the next page. I agree.
I agree with you, Wyatt, on that. I agree with that.
I think personally, Pocketville Road would be a great place for shops or whatever, because that is a very traveled and used.
So the other side's eligible.
I understand
And I
that.
think that needs to stay that way.
I
I
understand.
just think we protect the neighborhood. it makes a nice flow here.
So are you saying, Cameron, then that needs to be added back in there, the north-south range line?
That quarter section line, yes,
Okay,
in my opinion.
that kind of solves that hill division issue.
And that's probably not the exact, but it's somewhere there.
Yeah,
I tried researching where that line is and you must have to be an engineer with special software to find it. But I couldn't find it.
well, since I'm not the one that wrote this up, it's not me.
No, I remember when this was written that they had the engineer put that. That was left blank for the engineer to fill out. If there's no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
You don't want my motion. Which is,
Make a motion that we recommend denial of this highway resort zone ordinance. Taking. Yeah.
White's made a motion to recommend denial of the ordinance. Do I have a second?
So let me understand Wyatt's recommendation. To deny the,
He's saying no.
Yeah, to deny the proposed changes.
okay,
Do I have a second? The motion dies without a second. Why don't make? I've been here like 6 years. I don't know, like one hand, how they find that's happened in 6 years, now it's happened twice, but
You can.
I'll take another motion.
I'll make a motion that, we, table this item until next month. Rewrite it with a, more simplified, with the suggestions that we've had, clarifying that intersection between Pocketville Road and Co-op Terrace and everything north being ineligible and allowing everything else as eligible. Below that,
I have a motion to table the item, the ordinance.
until next month.
Until next month, which is May's meeting. Do I have a second? Motion dies without a second.
make a motion that we, pass this ordinance, with the addition of the north-south, quarter section line added to it. Which has been removed. I didn't move it from the minutes.
Just to get a clarification, Ken, are you recommending approval and adding in the quarter section line into item number 3?
I don't have that in front of me.
Yes.
Yes.
I second that.
All right, so Ken's made the motion to recommend approval with some adjustments. Specifically removing the language about the quarter section that was removed from item number 2 and placing it in item number 3. Bronwyn has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? No, we'll vote.
One quick question, I don't believe that the timeline on that is quite as urgent as it's been stated. I've worked on this for probably more than 15 years with that piece of property and with BLM. Very familiar with how the red tape works. And with the last person who's doing a review of the artifacts that were found up there. In other words, the dump pile that was burned up there, and they're still not finished with that. So they have many reports that will be lucky if it's another year before they're before auction. I think we've got time to work it over.
Can I say something?
I have been in contact with, the BLM person in charge of the property sales. And she has informed me that the artifact thing has been finished and submitted and is in the record at this point. Isn't
3 months.
found some interesting stuff though. Yeah, but that's good.
Yeah,
And we'd be ahead of the game for once, guys. Good idea.
Yeah.
there's no additional comments, we'll vote. Sean? No. Ken?
Yes.
Cameron, yes. Wyatt? No.
Yes,
Ron? The motion passes. Just for the, when I write it up. Wyatt's opposed to the changes in general. Because the town should pay for it at full price, correct?
Yeah.
And then Sean wants to, I think it should be a fair sale. Fair sale, and Sean is simplifying language. All right, so now we're on to number 4, ordinance amending chapter 60 and 34 of the Virgin Uniform Land Use Ordinance. Whatever. Well, not everything. And then we got all the rest of it. Okay, so. Let me get that pulled up real quick. At the very end now, right? Yeah, it is. All right, Ron, if you want to leave this discussion for a few minutes, I need to step out.
you need
And then
to
I'll be
look
back.
up.
Yeah, I gotta get the rest of it.
It's just on this.
Taking a break or not?
Yeah, let's take a break.
You want to take a break?
I think we should.
No. I'll be right back.
Hurry. Okay, so. Once again, we are stuck, and we're not stuck, yeah, we are stuck, we're stuck between. A lot of things, so. As you know, I am very much in favor of eliminating SDRs, especially in the rural residential and. Residential zones, I don't think that this proposed ordinance. Addresses it adequately enough at all. At the same time, I understand that they're saying. A lot of promises made, and whether they were promises made. You know, in the proper order or not, I understand that that's. A lot of people with a lot of money out that have a lot of stake in us, and I don't think the town should be going back on their word. So. This is a tricky one, and I personally think that the town is better served by smaller STRs. I think someone else should talk. What?
I have some comments.
Please pick up.
Several things. I want to take a minute and say that I read 41-page
Yes.
letter and all that. And I appreciate the city's comments, and the citizens' comments who were written in, who are here tonight, that orderly and politely made their comments. And I just want to honor and thank you for that. I did want to point out some things that were sent in a letter from Bob Kelly that basically mentioned decorum and caring for citizens and people who are here, not just people who are coming. And I appreciate those comments, Bob. And you can read those in minutes if you want to get online and read those. From the beginning, those of you that know me, that I've been here for a short time, short-term rentals is something that I've had a difficult time voting for much of anything on them. I consider them commercial in some instances and not in others. I consider short-term rentals appropriate in some places. But when they turn into situations where people who don't live here, people who want to develop them from outside and have family reunions, I believe family reunions should be legislated by us to be in certain zones, but I don't think they should be in somebody's neighborhood. And I think that we have to be really careful with our position, as I've mentioned before, that we are the last of the sticks. And that we seem to be picking for a lot of people from outside. And we have to be really careful, I believe, in respecting them, but in respecting first ourselves. And what we have and how we want things to look down the road. I believe that short-term rentals can be regulated in a proper manner to respect existing neighborhoods. But we're going into the point now of talking about, in my opinion, how they are affecting traffic. It's almost like we shouldn't know they're there. And we're worried that they're going to affect us. I approve of some of the current plans that are in effect of limiting the number of short-term rentals in the developments. And requiring them to be under CTRs, and that's not right. What's it called? Choose the right. And I just think that we need to get on top of it because I believe there's something in places that they can be commercial instead of a facility in a neighborhood that doesn't really bother us or bother the citizens. So that's how I feel about this.
Can you clarify that? Because that doesn't look like anywhere that you build in town is gonna affect the citizens one place or another, right? So can you clarify that statement for me?
I was really just trying to help Ron.
I'll clarify it, but you understand.
But clarification. I feel that it's stepping over, that people are doing short-term rentals now. How do I put this kindly? Just say, they're doing it in such a way that it's not just somebody in the neighborhood that's doing it and watching it and taking care of it. They're doing it more like a commercial operation. And we're even facing and addressing it in some way. We're saying you gotta have a professional cleaning service taking care of it, or a professional management company taking care of it. Instead of somebody living up at the 101, who, meets the person, lives next door, takes care of them, meets them, hears about them. It's like, Jay, you know, talking about meeting people from all around the world. You know, as he sees them in his neighborhood. I just think that they need to be regulated more like some of them, more like commercial hotels, those kinds of operations. Thank you.
You want to continue or you want me to take over?
Whatever you want, we're in charge.
I did want to clarify. I think it was Darlene. I think it was Darlene that said. The 10 people, I'm not seeing the 10 people, I'm not seeing that.
It's on the agenda.
It's not in the ordinance, but
It's not in the ordinance.
it's in the where.
Oh, is it in the whereas?
Was it written on their ends? So last month, we had a discussion on this and tried to decide what number was appropriate. And, it was an interesting discussion and voted to hopefully put it on some kind of public hearing to see the reaction. We did see that there was some very good comments made from those who have invested money and invested time and have developed. But we still don't have any of those places built yet. We don't know the impact. We do know the impact of a building that's right here that we're in, right in the middle of the old part of town. Where, you know, you would expect it to be the most rural residential, right? Yet we have reunions right here all the time. We have those, what you would call big parties, all loud music.
Yes, and they're really a pain.
But we have those here in the middle of that residential. Does it get managed? Yes, it gets managed. Are there concerns? Yeah, there's concerns and there's problems that have happened. But is it all the time? No, it's a community. And communities are different. You're not always gonna have the nice neighbor. You're not always gonna have somebody who's there, you know, 90 years of their life. It's gonna change, and I think this idea, this concept that short-term rentals are so evil and bad is
Okay.
completely against what we're trying to decide on this ordinance. This ordinance is about, it's trying to control the side of the house. We cannot do that, and I think this just needs to just go away. As an idea, there's one thing I do like on here that we should look at doing, and that's the 32.06 prohibited use. That's in our residential zone, not having those. The reason why I want that is because then more people would come in and possibly propose a subdivision of residential houses that then families could buy. And only families would be there. They'd have smaller lots. They could be affordable. Right now, the way we have it set up, we can't afford it. So the houses have to be built somewhere. And if people can come in and initiate that by doing short-term rentals initially, if the economy crashes, guess what? People aren't going to be traveling here for short-term rentals. Those houses will turn into houses for families. Thanks, Sean. Robin, go ahead.
So I think that this ordinance wholly doesn't address the short-term rental issue adequately at all. It doesn't address moving forward. It doesn't address any kind of grandfathering things that we do. I mean, there are too many overnight stays happening in town and not enough to balance it out. The development is not balanced in a way that is long-term gonna be good for anybody. And I mean, I think even investors would say that. In fact, they probably would love it if we regulate a little bit more after they're through, because then they have a chance at being a viable business. So I mean, this ordinance, I don't feel like addresses the real issues here. So I'm not gonna attach to this particular ordinance because it falls so short of what needs to happen long term. I don't think the issue is about short-term rentals being bad. I think it's an issue of putting development in the right places to have our town develop in a way that works for everybody. I'm not, and so I think we need to work, and I have been working on, and hopefully we can garner a little bit more support.
You just say the word.
You got it, baby. I'm saying, anyway, I think we need to do a better, more comprehensive, ordinance that really, that will be a long-term solution. Can satisfy everybody, and I think we can do it. So I'm not attached to this ordinance, but I am attached to the idea that we need to do something about the short-term rentals and the ratio and balancing our development. And having a situation where, and let me add this, and definitely have a situation where when you have people coming in to build a subdivision, they know the process. I mean, the reason we're in so much intention in our town, which I hate, is because we have, not we, but we, all of us, have not been careful enough in the way that we've managed things, and we need to do that better now. Let's put, here's a checklist that we should have been using all along for preliminary plats. And I'm gonna use it in the next agenda item, so be ready. Let's get our ducks in a row and let's avoid the conflict and people spending money they shouldn't spend and people not knowing what they can expect and not knowing. Let's get rid of the ambiguity. Let's make clear ordinances that work. And Cameron, you need to wake up right now.
I'm more.
Anyway, sorry for the soapbox. I don't know what to do with this ordinance because I don't think it cuts it, but I do think we need to address short-term rentals and moving forward. I think we need to respect the confusion that has already happened and respect the people involved in their investments. So that's where I sit. How about you boys?
Just to be clear, the changes proposed in this ordinance would be affected none by following the preliminary plat more closely.
That's why I said I'm gonna add this, because it was sort of like an appendage, but yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
could you, explain to me in your word what you're proposing?
So the proposal of this ordinance is to simply restrict the size 5-bedroom of an STR that is within the short-term rental overlay zone. So when we had those several, what have we approved? 3, we made recommendations for 3 overlay zones. So this would affect the people in those 3 zone. They already have the zone for it. This would affect the builders within those subdivisions.
So it just affects those 3 that we've approved.
And then Jeff Lee spoke to his, which is in process.
And that anything can have 5 up to 5 bedrooms. And that's it, that's your issue.
Yes, that's the proposal.
As far as the change.
Yes, as far as the change. Well, and the banning them from residential zone.
It doesn't affect the 5 and 12. We talked about last month,
5 and 12.
12 persons.
Yeah, that was fine. That was the recommendation by the fire.
It doesn't address persons, it just addresses bedrooms. Yeah, I didn't put the persons in there, just bedrooms, that's why I wasn't sure where Donald got that and persons from, but I don't see it in the ordinance itself, so.
And your purpose for making this change to 5 bedrooms is that it just wasn't there and you didn't put it in.
Yeah, the change was to address concerns that, that residents had stated about large homes being used and becoming a nuisance. Right, so that's what the change was put in there to address.
Okay. I know all the Scotland letter, the email from Jeff Staples, and there's some, I thought there was some really great ideas in there about ways to possibly make sure that, like, they're not a party house, like a decibel meter in the backyard, the pollution. I think making a deposit for incidentals with the city, things like that, I think when it's going through the permitting process, I think is the way to deal with these more personally than just trying to limit them ordinarily. I don't even know if that's a word.
No, but it's a good.
What you're saying is it would be better to add additional restrictions rather than to set size requirements.
Yeah.
That,
Yes, yeah, I can remember that.
someone said that one of the lawyers said that they had submitted a letter, but I didn't see that in the letter.
It's in the letters. It was actually sharpened several times. I'd also like to acknowledge. There was one from Jeff Staples. Like a week or so ago.
Yes.
Was it referred?
And that was one of the first ones. That had some great suggestions in there.
That's what he's talking about.
Is that what you
Yeah.
just said? You just said yes. Okay. I wasn't sure.
I thought it
had
was
the
Staples.
that you were addressing.
Sorry.
Steer heat. We're ready. Make a recommendation.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll make a recommendation. We table this ordinance indefinitely.
Sean made the motion to table this ordinance indefinitely. Do I have a second on that?
It's gonna be a long day.
I mean, I'm tempted.
I make a motion that we recommend.
One second, Sean's motion fails for lack of a second. Go ahead.
I make a motion that we recommend denial of this ordinance as written.
Wise made a motion to recommend denial of the proposed ordinance. Do I have a second? I can second that.
Make a motion.
I second that. So any further discussion?
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, no, we're good. Additional discussion on that?
Can you explain?
Because I don't feel like we should be limiting bedrooms. In our ordinance, I feel like that's a health department. Well, when they design septic systems. Personally, I don't feel like if I'm building a house, I don't think someone should be able to limit my right to build this kind of house I want to build personally.
So we're not limiting that, we're limiting what would be permitted as an STR. No, I'm not saying this, I want this number, I'm just saying what we're limiting is what could get a permit from us as an
Right,
STR.
I understand.
We're not, of course, we don't limit people what they could build, come on.
Yes, but this ordinance specifically says 5 bedrooms.
But doesn't say you can't build more, it just says it can't be an STR.
I don't agree with that.
Well, I'm not saying I agree, but I'm just clarifying.
Thank you, Bronwyn. I will vote. Bronwyn,
Yes, sir.
we're gonna vote. I'm gonna vote yes.
Well,
The recommendation is denied.
Can you skip me, because I'm so,
Sure.
I'm not feeling good about this whole thing.
Oh, yes.
And
No.
Cameron. Yes, Wyatt,
Yes.
Ron.
I can't vote yes on it, it doesn't do anything.
Well, this is to recommend.
I mean, whatever, yeah,
You want to recommend it?
I don't want, I want to say no, just because you said that. How about that, it passes, so we're good either way.
Okay.
Sorry, it's late, I know.
I just can't support tabling the item. I want to move it along. I do support. Looking at putting some additional regulations on there.
I agree.
It just seems this is probably not the one.
Yes, not the one, good, well said.
That's my opinion. All right, so we'll move to number 5. Right, we're in 5. Proposed subdivision 12 Creek Mesa, Jeff Lee. Comments on the 12 Creek Mesa.
Oh, yes.
All right, so there was an electrician firm, to.
No,
Should have a checklist from.
I have a checklist. I do.
So where does that check, is that checklist found?
This is from the city, you guys, and this is what we should have been using the whole time, and there it is.
It's also a check record.
It's.
That's 40.
Anyway, we should have been using this the whole time, this would have saved us all kinds of confusion, because this clearly delineates what we need to have in our possession, and what the developers need to have submitted, and how detailed it needs to be before we can approve a preliminary plat.
Or you can regenerate.
Let me reach out and get the whole thing. I'm just trying to make it easy for you, Ken.
No, you're good. I've seen the checklist.
I know. Strangely, you've never pointed it out to me. So, as newbies, we need your guidance, sir. Anyway, the checklist and this, and I'm not sure we check out, so I have some questions on that, but I'll let.
So. I don't think that we have, all of the documents in our file. Just-
Oh,
There's,
yeah, no,
yeah, there's some that are in the other files.
okay, but we need to know,
There's,
yeah, unless we know what we have, we can't decide.
Yeah, but it's also not Jeff's fault that they're not in file.
No, I'm not, oh, I wasn't saying that, believe me, I
No,
know.
I'm just. Go ahead, Sean.
You guys get it, I'm happy to.
Yeah,
If you want me.
thanks, Jeff. Sean, did you have something first?
okay.
For the checklist, so Jeff, I did have a question. There's 2 plot maps in here, one has 24 lots and one has 20 lots. Is the 20 lot the revised one or?
Please, let me please.
Yes, so, and probably the easiest thing to do, Jeff Lee, I own the property that we're talking about. So probably the easiest thing to do is looking at the, and I appreciate the neighbors' concerns and stuff, the 40 pages was a lot, but I like the thoroughness, so way to go, Lord. Looking at this and just realizing that no matter what I've seen for the last few years, I'm gonna dot every I and cross every T, because I feel like I'm gonna get that level of scrutiny no matter what, and that's fine. I actually had a new plat submitted, or I just sat down with a engineer today, so the 20 plat, so originally we were 25 lots. And that's what's buildable, we built 35, but 25 is what we originally proposed. I revised it down to 24, I like the layout, went to 20, so it's gone down.
Met with the engineer today, read through the letter. There was some major concern about the home that sat on the east end of the bluff. Sat with the engineer today, worked through that and redesigned it to try to move where there was 2 houses out there, there's one and it's pushed back further. And so make this simple, I have submitted, emailed over today to the clerk. There's a new plat map as of today, which means I missed the 10-day deadline. So I know where that's gonna put me as far as tonight, but I just feel like we should address it and get out there. So there's an updated plat in there. That plat addresses it addresses everything you want. And I have a 1 foot increment, I have a 5 foot, and I have a 10. The 1 foot's really hard to read because of the grade of the cliff. So I put it into 5, but I have all of them. You can have whatever you want. It also has on there a setback from the cliff that shows where the lots, where that 50-foot setback is. So when I first came here, there was a lot of concerns brought up about traffic, it's about the bridge, about the slope stability, the wastewater treatment. People still they don't want anything up there, and I get that. And so, after trying to get Carl Rasmussen to contract out, tell us what to do with the bridge, he just said I have to go do it anyways as a city engineer. And so Carl went and inspected the bridge and everything and just said there's not any issues with the bridge. And that meant that I hired a engineering firm to do the traffic study. I based it off 33% more homes that's listed on my plat. And they said we met all the criteria, the traffic wasn't, an issue for us. I hired a slope stability test, and they came back and they said, your building code is gonna be 33 feet. We recommend 50 away from the edge. That was the recommendation, 50. I had placed all of the homes 50 back. So
Is that red line?
that's the red line you can see. And so 33, they, and again, no offense to my attorney friends, that they like to always recommend, but that margin of error, they said 50, and so everything is now 50 feet back. We did a wastewater treatment. They concluded it was feasible and it worked. The soil is marginal. The soil is marginal everywhere here. That's not a shock if you dig anywhere.
So on wastewater, you do an essential system.
So we're doing a wastewater treatment plant that will treat all 20 lots in one central system.
And
So
it's in the back of the property.
it'd be in the southeast corner, correct?
So the
Yeah.
language in this, in that study says that, in one of your studies says that there can be any septic on the top.
There's no soil. That's why we're doing a waste.
Right, so that addresses that.
Yes, yeah, so you go from a individual septic tank, which isn't very costly,
Right.
to what you would see for a hotel or something. We are doing a commercial class 3 wastewater treatment plant.
I thought I saw that, okay,
Yeah,
so here's
so-
my other,
Much cleaner process and system than what you have at your house, because it's meeting the commercial, regulations for wastewater treatment.
can I ask you another question?
Sure.
Okay, so on your soil stability slope study, that it's talked about having 15 acres only in that whole that was developed a bowl. And I'm trying to figure out, as I look at this, I mean, your numbers are way more than 15 acres on the lots, but what are you counting as developable, and what does that mean for like swimming pools and?
I think they put
Tennis
I think they put the 15, and that's for a building thing. That's what you're seeing within the red. So within the red, if you were to come and take an outline, that's roughly what you're looking at.
That's your 15 acres.
That's
So,
the 15 acres.
so do you have a way to, what does that mean you can't build fences outside that? Does
So
that
you
mean-
you can't put a
You think
occupied
it's
residence.
a residence?
You can put you can't put other things there.
But
I'm not assuming, I don't know, I don't check it out, so you'd have to get an engineer before you could get off on a pool with a building permit.
tennis court.
But I don't know if anyone's putting a tennis court on the edge, I don't think that's probably the inclusion, but this is. What that for is the slope stability gonna be impacted by building houses? They said, again, they said you can build it, it's a cliff band in the front, you're not gonna build a house on top of that. 33 feet, they said, we recommend 50 and we're 50 back from
any cliffs, not just along the frontage there, which would drop down to Rio de Zion, but even around the sides and the back, which, you know, would not be, that, even on my own property, I guess you could say. Just for safety, or not safety, but just for prudence, I guess, to build away from that. So what is I meant, you know, going through this, if I was to look at the checklist and say, what is not included there? When we did the wastewater treatment and the soil studies and the soil stability, they did the stormwater discharge, but that has not been written up into a formal report, so that's gone. And then the construction plans with that, and that will be, and both of those I'll submit to Crystal. So really, we're missing the two things, and so I'll just say is, if we want everything done,
We do.
then I will bring them back, and we should postpone this, but it's good to hear the feedback again today and to go through this, so we know, and then everything will be here next month, but.
Jeff?
Yes,
On, the access road, is that been booked out, an access road?
oh yeah, thank you. So the other thing is, there was an easement recorded in 2007 with Linda Collette and the Riverwoods LLC, which was the original property owners of what became Rio de Zion. Even though that easement had been in place, I think it's been about 27 years now. I mean, there's a road there, which, again, I'm not an attorney, but the attorneys tell me that there's legal precedent there. But to avoid all of this, I bought the piece of property that touches the Rio de Zion HOA, which still was owned by that Riverwoods LLC. And part of the stormwater discharge, and you'll see that there is the road is moved off of the Rio de Zion where it doesn't touch theirs. And it goes off and it exits the property on our continuous property now. So we will be rerouting the road. And part of the stormwater study thing, which they came back, is at one point, the Staples had reached out and asked, they didn't realize that I had owned that piece of property, and they were gonna install more pipes for drainage over to Cornelius Wash, because there's a drainage problem that goes across the road there behind the current mayor's home. And so they contacted me saying, are you okay if we put that there? And my engineer was saying, you probably need to do more than what you did. So that'll be part of my report. And what you guys decide to do with that is fine. But part of me says, when we go to do all this, we should just kind of go with what again, I don't know if you had engineers look at what you were proposing there with the stage, but the engineers I had said we have something different. So the road will not be on Rio de Zion. It won't be touching them, and it won't be using that easement.
And the flash water that's in the video, that's being addressed.
Well, yeah, it'll be addressed. The road will be moving off, but they'll, I'll say this, the road will still be in the same place. The same problems were there unless they install more pipes. And where it leaves my place, I can't say to do that, but I'll give my recommendations, and I'm fine with what they recommend for that. But we will be moving the drainage pipe from where it's at right now to the other side of the road. But we need more drainage, and the report will show that, so.
And I probably ignorant about this, but moving beyond this, have you decided whether or not you're selling lots or buildings and selling, however we?
I'm under contract to sell the property. And the people that are buying the property need to have the property platted or the preliminary plat before that they can buy it. And so, and the people that are buying that have met with some of the homeowners that are in that area, and they have a unique opportunity to pick, in a sense, who would be their future neighbors, and to have a bit more of a collaborative effort. I don't plan on developing it, but if I can't get, if we can't get the process done and get it finished, my intent years ago was, we bought it, it was made eligible to be rezoned to highway resort zone, and then the referendum stopped that. I will sell the property. I don't plan on doing it, but if I don't sell it to the people I'm under contract with who want to live there, I will be selling it on the market, and the people have approached us right now to buy it, and all they care about is one thing: maximizing what they want, getting the most homes up there and doing that. And so part of the reason I'm still involved in this is I want to see the people that I think would be the best owners of it buy it. I want to, we've been talking with them for a long time about buying it. I don't want to just,
put it out on the market and say, who's got the deepest pockets right now? And if it does go that way, it's gonna get, it will not be what the current people under contract vision for that home. Or for
I
that.
appreciate that you're talking with the Rio de Sion people.
I haven't been, the people under contract have been speaking with them, so.
And I think we deserve some privilege as to how that goes and as it goes and as it progresses, so that we can be informed as to eliminating the stress and
Well,
the problems that are there that I know we fixed.
I agree with you. I think it's good to sit and work. I also believe that I have property rights as an owner. And if I follow the ordinances, which is why I'm saying tonight,
Yeah.
I'm missing those two things. I will come back with everything in there. But every report, and every engineer, and every person that's come out there, I'm meeting all the criteria that are listed within the town, the Vulu ordinances that we like to talk about to do a development. And according to that, I can do a lot more than what I'm doing up there. I don't want to do that, but I expect there's a point where I can just say, and that's what I'm saying. I recognize that there's two things not there. They will be there, and when they're there next month, I don't wanna, there's just a point where it's
So
like, I
next
can't
month,
do this.
We can have that.
Well, I missed it. I mean, I have to have it in 2 weeks from tomorrow. Crystal, I believe is the cutoff for for the meeting on the 10th, and so I'll have it in by then, and then we have plenty of time, but I would want to see a vote. I was supposed to go before the town council, which is fine. We won't in, in 2 weeks. So that'll get pushed as well, and that's okay, but everything will be in there. At least, and again, that's the other thing is there's a preliminary plat checklist from the city. There's also what's listed in Vulu today. What I'm doing is I'm using the checklist in Vulu. We went through line item by line item, so before that meeting, if we're seeing things are missing, and maybe you guys do a work meeting next month, look at that and say, you're missing this, because according to the engineers, for people that I pay money to say they know what they're doing, they're telling me that all those things are in there, so. Any other question for me? Okay,
Is there, sorry, Jeff.
yeah, go ahead, no, that's fine.
Was there, is there any consideration that you've given to keeping, an exit from this property into the BLM? It looks like there is on the map, but I'm not sure.
That is, that the engineer, again, I go with what the engineers say, they say that because of the way that road is, you want to have that road punched all the way through right to the border of the BLM. And they just said that's the easiest way to make this easier for code compliance and, future ingress or egress, just the same thing. Just like rear design, this neighborhood will be strictly regulated by fire suppression, the different things, so.
And it says in here that it's a public road, that's
It says public, that hasn't been,
determined yet.
they asked me that and I said, private, public, I don't know. I've heard you want to keep it private, and I've heard other stuff where people are going public, that I'm just gonna say we need to address that, but right now it's actually set up as a private road. It might say public, I don't know, but I think we made it to a public road specification for you, and that's where you see the 45 feet, the 30, whatever, it's 30 feet pavement, 2 feet gutters on each side and the sidewalks.
Okay.
So it's set up, so they designed it as a public road just for ease of where we're at.
Public road standards, but
Standards,
you're
yeah.
thinking of keeping it private. If
So
not,
far, that's what it says.
thanks, Jeff.
Briefly addressed by you, what kind of plans for street lighting is there?
No, they're not, there's a lot of, people are concerned. Let me say this, the reason I bought that property is because it's a beautiful piece of property. It's got really nice views, the view looking south, the view looking north. When I, and again, I can't speak for future people that are buying it, but I know for myself, like what we envisioned putting out there originally was a landscape hotel. We talked about that for a long time, that was gonna be great. All the units would have been back on BLM, it would have been the least obtrusive design. That's out the window, that's fine.
But whether it's me, I think, or the next person in there, the next person in there wants to build their own residences there. I think that they're going to try to make this as appealing as a neighborhood as they can and not, you know, some crazy thing. I like dark skies, you know, and I'll say this, we'll follow the ordinances, whatever the lighting is, we'll follow that. And the ordinances change, awesome, we'll follow that. We don't have a problem. All our other properties that we have in this area, we all follow the dikes, you know, all of those are dark sky regulated, so I'm good with that.
Would it be advantageous to, I'm kind of speaking here, but also to comment on it, advantageous to, keep the public hearing open for his item?
I don't think so.
If you're not I don't know if you're voting tonight, or if not voting tonight, if you're gonna vote next month, if you keep it, I don't know the regulation.
That's fine, so don't-
Okay, we'll discuss that.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yep, thank you.
Get through your checklist,
He's working his way through, isn't he?
did you check them all?
Oh, I've got your check mark. Don't you worry.
What else is left?
Well, depends on which one you use.
We'll have to see the new submitted stuff.
I know he's not wrong, he has about three.
And didn't have time to go through all. I'll entertain.
One quick comment, it's just interesting that in this case, we almost put him to a standard of final plat.
No, actually, no, that's not right. No, it isn't. That's not right. We should be doing this for everybody at preliminary plat. That's the whole problem.
I know there's checklists, so there's 2 items, right?
I don't know what you're talking about, John. I just know that that comment right there that we're hoping to do final plat is not real.
Say that again.
We're hoping into final plat standards is not real. Our preliminary plat standards have been
Okay, well,
not cool.
is there any further discussion?
No.
No, just any discussion over no? Right, all right, so I'm gonna make a motion that we reopen the public hearing and close the meeting. For the purpose of, continuing his public hearing. I'll second. Cameron made the motion, Wyatt seconded the motion, any further discussion? We'll vote, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So I'll make a motion that we continue the public hearing on item number 5, proposed subdivision preliminary plat, Palm Mesa subdivision until our scheduled May planning and zoning meeting. Second, Ron seconds that motion. Vote, Sean?
Yes.
And yes. Cameron, yes. Wyatt? Yes. Ron, yes. All right, so item number 5 will be continued until May. I'll make a motion, we close the public hearing and open the public meeting.
Second.
Ron seconds that motion, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Moving on to number 6, this is the conditional use permit from Kurt Barker. And Kurt left, it looks like. Yeah.
You made the motion about the public hearing. So we need to remake the motion in the opens meeting.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion that we table, item number 5, proposed subdivision, 12 Mesa subdivision, directly until our May meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ron seconds that motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, so now we're on the conditional use permit for Kirk Barker. I think we lost Kirk.
He left, he had another change on, we just agree with him.
Not adopted anything.
Are we recommending that they be
We
adopted?
made a recommendation.
Sorry. So how do we not muddy the water?
Did you read the letter from him?
Which one?
Staff memo?
I read all of these things, but I was lazy by the time, he just sent those to us right before the meeting.
There was a couple of things missing from his application. Dean's not here either.
He runs outside and talks to somebody. So you can tell us.
So, thank you. Sure, I think someone else.
Yeah.
Stand up. What else did they say need me? Not. Oh, yeah. I should have been talking about, but yeah. That microphone behind you. All right, so with these, Kirk Barker CUPs, I did notice, I saw the letter from Heath. That is letter. It's in the. No, it's in the folder about the CUPs for Kirk Barker. Oh, hey, look at that. So. It didn't list. Oh, look at this. All this great. Mostly talking about procedure. Okay, so. He has his development plan, he has written an area and the purpose for the land use, he doesn't have an estimated number of employees. He doesn't have an estimated time of construction, the utilities weren't listed on there either.
Well. It's missing, probably should send it back home and you let him for its judgment complete everything.
Then there's some other stuff listed here that were from, that are, under the discretion of the zoning administrator. So Gene on this. Where you at? So. So on this, CUP and the requirements. There's a bunch of analytics, studies. And stuff that may be required by the zoning administrator. Sorry, can you tell me what you're looking at? Well, if you go to 16, if you go to 16.04. This is the application for the conditional use. Okay. Look at item number 7. So Kirk didn't provide any of these things, but they're only required at the zone, discretion of the zoning administrator, right? Right, so
That's a public, because you got weapons there.
you want me to read them?
It's in 1604A7.
Fiscal responsibility,
Including but not limited to proof of financial responsibility, fiscal impact analysis, professional traffic, geotechnical, utility capacity or other study. Construction and excavation plans with detailed site analysis as may be required by the zoning administrator in his sole discretion for evaluation of the application.
So this is a tough one because I have not had any face-to-face or even phone talk with Mr. Barker. And I have not seen any documentation of this come directly to you, so other than seeing the original concept, I have not seen anything else. I've had a couple of phone calls in my hand, so I can't speak to any of this at this point.
okay. Not here either yet, the lead.
Yep, so he called and I let him know what the outcome was.
I can tell you that if I was doing, and it's on. I'm doing the, if I was to do this, I would make sure I kind of go out of that, I would for sure require. Traffic study. Because the DOT is going to require that. Geotechnical goes with buildings, that would be later. I would require the professional traffic, would require anything to do with, they have to show that they had approval from the state and the sewer system. Or I would recommend anything for CUP, because those are stoppers, those are deals that can stop the entire deal, and then you split in CUP. If anybody, even if it goes with the land, if nobody's able to build it, because the health department says, sorry, the ground will not support whatever kind of system, they just, you can't do it, then it's pointless to move forward. So those would be my two letters that I would require. One from the DOT saying we're going to require something, and one from the separate, which actually isn't on there. So it would be one that I could say, rather than the traffic.
But it doesn't say about utilities above there, so.
Right. And understanding that it kind of has to be a balance between what you require prior to a sale and prior to building versus then purchasing the property. There has to be a balance. You can't say, we're gonna require all this stuff before we're gonna, because they may not even purchase the property, but you can get letters from those agencies saying, if you choose to go forward with this is going to be our requirement. If that makes sense. So that's something that I ask developers to provide if they're going to do something like this prior to a purchase.
Where's it talk about, it's gonna be that thing?
It's
Six, all utilities would be in place before during and after construction. Site plan is fairly complete. Other than signage. Very minor. So I guess if you haven't worked with him, you don't know what bonuses were. What the bonuses were to increase his building size.
I have nothing. I called him twice and never got a call back. So I know he's worked a little bit with Heath there. I told him he really needed to be a whole this week walk through stuff and had no applications.
If you went from center, yeah, 11,000.
Yeah.
You don't have square foot, you're talking about building size.
Footprint,
Yeah. Footprint of the-
which, I mean, you took every bonus out there, and I probably assume that the wastewater being used, and those aren't available.
I think the key is to remember this is concept, until we sit down and say, okay, you can't do this, you can do this. What are you wanting? How can you work around these? What can you not do? But that, we haven't even reached that point. So anybody can throw a drawing and say, I want to do this, but we haven't done that.
That's the way it is.
He paid his money and put in his application.
Just, you know, that. More stuff. Either give us a full application.
You know, bring everything with it and better discussion. So that anyway.
I just don't know.
Why are we postponing pending now, because of the length of the application to be complete?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if he wants a continuance or if we just wanna have to submit everything.
I can tell you that he wants you guys to approve this.
Well, obviously, that's what he wants.
That's what he wants. So you just asked if you want to continue it.
Does he have to pay again if we don't continue it? Okay, well, then let's have him start again.
I don't think you'd have to pay.
No, start,
Um,
let's have him resubmit everything. Complete,
The really, the biggest thing is, well, there's two big things, right? So the density is too high.
Yes,
By 100%.
The height is. Come on,
yes.
it's more like 45.
No, it's substantial. That's a key word.
So. The density is too high, for the number of rooms. I don't know where the bonuses are coming from for the additional square footage on the buildings. And, you know, I saw Heath's memo and Heath was not super clear to him about the requirements in there. So. That could have been part of the problem here. He went straight to the 12,000 square feet, not with maximum, yeah. Yeah, I wasn't clear on that. Additionally, so there is the employee housing portion of it too. I think Heath has recommended they split this into two parcels. I actually think that they would probably need to keep it as one parcel. And that would be because if you look under, permitted uses is commercial habitation,
Oh, yeah, it's attached. And that's what I'm saying.
and then would need to be on the same
That's
parcel
right.
for commercial habitation.
So I know a number of, my wife used to work in Glen Hospitality back in the day, like she was a maid, but anyway, she had a lot of friends that worked for Ensign that all lived in Newark and St. George, Hurricane, and were trying to rent apartments in Hurricane, and it just wasn't, it's just not feasible. So-
Yeah, well, he puts on his map that the employee housing is for his Springdale and Virgin location.
Yeah.
Actually.
Now, if you keep that as one parcel, right? One parcel, which is 11 acres. And you do the 15 because there's a bonus, but they don't say how you get the bonus, but you just say you do 15.
Just for fun.
Just for fun.
Yeah.
That puts him at like 165,
Yeah.
which is just slightly less than what he has. So,
So,
and if you keep it at 12, then it's significantly. 12 times 11 is 132. Still only 30 units shy. Go ahead.
I just make a recommendation that you guys, recommend him to meet with me.
yeah.
It was up to row before he proceeds to come back.
Yeah, that'd be my recommendation. But I think for now, we're just. I think for now, we're just going to. Well, I'll make a motion that we. That we table item 6 and number 7 until more documentation and information can be had from the developer.
Second that.
And it worked with the zoning administrator.
Second that.
I made the motion, Ron seconded the motion. Any further discussion? No. Thank you. The vote, Sean?
Yeah, right?
Vote.
Yeah.
And, yes, Cameron, yes, Wyatt?
Yes.
Ron?
I'd just like to acknowledge Marzy's
Yes.
letter. Thank you. That was very well. Thanks for staying up so late.
I just think people, it seems it was an entire different generation of, but the town is still committed, the town is still obligated. And my wife and I are resolute in our enthusiastic enforcement back there. You know, we've been very accommodating, we've been in a spirit of, you know, of compromise and that, but we made the compromise.
In many ways, I'm committed too, so I agree.
Yeah, we should be.
Thanks, Mike. We'll move on to number 8. This is the spending chapter 8.40 outdoor lighting. For Hulu. Any additional discussion on this item?
Great comments. Anyone in the shop is to comment about what I did. We talked last month and I made the changes that we had discussed. As far as the oven temperature, we can adjust that as needed at this point. I also did add light output as the 7th item, just so it's something that we can address. Remember, all of these, and the ladies leave.
Yeah, it's all right.
All of these are specifically general on purpose. We talked about that before, because then we will use these to then get the specifics in each section. For example, the commercial section. I hope all of you got a chance to read some of the other stuff that I had written about the commercial section and how this relates to further parts. It's not going to change any of our lighting ordinance.
But for all that work, don't you, I mean, there is not a single, it needs to have a shall or a will or a must.
Okay, wait. So I'm gonna address this, right? So we can just move on from this.
Okay.
These are general standards, right? So with these general standards, this will make it so that it's any conditional use permit that's issued, any type of item like that, when we're addressing specific things,
But not a shall, so will.
we can refer back to this portion of our ordinance to justify those conditions.
Right.
Okay. Additionally, as we discussed last time, this is a work in progress. Once we have these general ones, we will move to more specific lighting standards for applications, right?
So don't.
Okay. Yes,
Okay. We got it.
thanks.
Make a motion that we approve the outdoor lighting guideline changes.
Wife made a motion to recommend approval of of chapter 8.40 outdoor lighting guidelines. Do I have a second? Ron seconds that motion.
So just one more comment,
Further discussion, Sean?
further discussion. I didn't know exactly how to number this, so the numbering, and I didn't put that in here.
Well, we say it's a work in progress.
So as far as the numbering, that will have to be adjusted as it's added into, because without changing all of the lighting ordinance and trying to stick this in the purpose section, I had to do AP. So should be fine with just mentioning that. That's why it looks a little.
Well, let me understand this. Sean, when possible, just efforts, et cetera, if people want to tie down tighter and use the word shall, is that going to be continued to be discussed?
Yeah.
Right, so we're not dying voting against that. We're voting to move this forward so that we can make those adjustments.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay. And can I help you? Can I work with you as?
And I've sent everybody a copy of what I have so far.
Yes,
I could continue.
I've got some, and I've read through that, and so.
Sean, can you repeat your motion? Oh, wait.
I will, yes.
You didn't get the motion to approve it?
Yes. Yes, Wyatt made a motion to recommend approval. Sean second. Oh, Ron second, that's, okay, I just wanted to address the 3,500 Kelvin.
Yeah, that's, thank you for addressing that. Wow.
So maybe we can get a look at that or talk to people that,
Can we add to it that you'll recommend?
they're outside. So
These are 2,700. These are 2,700 that are here.
Maybe one outside.
The one on south is 4. So just,
That one's 4. The one at the city office, using the flag.
yeah, the flag. Just as someone who's tried to purchase outdoor lighting. You've got to go higher than 2,700. If you want to have. A decent option, 2,700 is too low. Now. The 3,000, the 3,000 is. Much better, but 27 is too low. to
I
have
need to look at that. I mean, I need more research.
So good, but this is a good start, so I'm not.
And it is, it's a good start. We don't want people to go, this is a recommendation kind of. That we don't want them ever to go slower.
No one said.
So that's kind of the idea, is that.
Yeah.
When people look at it, they're like, oh, I can't put a 4,000 because it says 35, even though it doesn't say.
Do we have to say 35 though? We say 3? This is down or 35?
I really think the 35 is a good place. You're still in the yellow zone. You haven't
I think
moved
that's
on.
really right.
You think what's really right?
Right.
In architectural lighting, it is not considered a yellow light.
Yeah, 3,500 is yellow. Still yellow.
Well. But are you guys open to like learning a little bit more? I mean, I know you know a lot. Maybe teaching me, I just don't want it to be stuck there and have it be a mistake.
Again, these are just the foundation. We
Yeah,
will
but
get
you
into that.
sound very flexible right there, so that's why I was.
Yeah, I'm not very flexible on a general standard being lower than 3,500.
Yeah.
Not expert enough to know unless I see it, and I think we need to decide, not so much numbers here.
It would,
We need to talk to people who are trained and licensed and certified and can say, well, this is what this looks like, and this is what this looks like. And this is what it's like at night, and this is why it's not safe, or this is why it's safe, or.
I would be willing to bet that the lights that are on. And we could go ask them, and you could go look at that at night, but I would be willing to bet that the outdoor lights that are on the RV park. Sign, right? I would be willing to bet that those are free, if not first.
We put a bet in the public record.
Sweet. And I also think that the ones that are in the parking lot of the.
Well, I don't think we can discuss though. I think we'll get good information, right? And then get it.
That whole month, you take triple litter.
I can. Thanks. Okay, yeah.
Right, you can look at it. We're now, so it's probably. At the street.
All right, I just don't wanna.
All right, there's a motion in a second. We're gonna vote, Bronwyn.
I'm gonna say no, because I know the rest of you are gonna say yes.
Wyatt, yes. Cameron, yes.
Yeah, I just don't, I'm not-
Yes. Yes. Sean.
Yes.
Alright, this is the last one, this is the ordinance amending chapter 2.12, 6.12, 16, 16.4, 16.06, 16.05.
that's fine.
So the only thing that I think we need to change on that is remove the section of 2.12. Because, no, because in the ordinance that we already recommended.
Let me, Cameron, can I make a comment quick? Everything is chapter 16 that I was gonna change, we already changed by rules. In that ordinance that we already recommended, there was only one, and I think it was from chapter 6.12. Was the only one? Is that right? There was only one. I don't even know if it's necessary anymore. Since we very clearly.
Just be blaming on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All the rest of them are already changed in that other ordinance, 16.04, it's chapter 16 there. I think it's the 6.12 is the only one we need to keep in this particular ordinance. Yeah, because it said adversely affected person, and I think we're just gonna change it to adversely affected party to match the definition.
Is that because they might not identify the person?
Well, I did. Where, we want to have a party.
I'm not seeing it.
Okay, look, yeah. That one was very.
Yeah, so we don't need the,
So that's the current right now.
yeah,
We don't need chapter 16, we don't need chapter 16.04, the only one we need is 6.12. So we just make a recommendation about that, and we're done.
we only need 6.12. I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of ordinance number 9. Removing all references except 6.02, 6.12.
Six point what?
12. That's the only one that will stay. Because all the other ones are changing anyway.
And this is just because the state, I mean, this, we now comply with state regulations. Now we're in agreement with the state, right?
Yes. I made the motion, do I have a second?
Oh, second.
Wyatt seconds that motion, any further discussion? All right, we'll vote, Sean.
Yes.
Kent. Yes. Cameron, yes. Wyatt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Robin. All right, now we got item number C, number D, commissioner comments. Told you just get rid of it.
I make a motion of the commissioner comments.
So make a motion, my company is gonna make a
Why
motion.
don't we motion to move past commissioner comments? Anyone want to stay on commissioner comments?
I think we're tuckered out.
Commissioner comments. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Brian made the motion to adjourn, do I have a second?
Do you want to
We're gonna
say?
let that.
Wyatt seconds that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Plus someone else besides you, Sean, did it.
That motion failed.
Now that the meeting's over, you have just a suggestion, I think would really help.
No. But we need to, we're people online, because you see, we need to make a note of all the people who aren't online, don't stop it.
Oh, I didn't stop it yet.
Okay.
You. Well, people have been going, there's 5 participants, people have been going on and off though. This whole time. You. Trying to find out something for you that. Guys, so it's over a little bit.
Oh, no.
But I think you may like it. Oh, 4 attendees, August Lee, Karen. Don't know. Bloomquist. Lori Bachman, Monica Lopez. You almost walked away, I almost did, and
Okay, you can go ahead and.
it's a good thing it asked me.